Most people do not fall behind all at once. They fall behind quietly, through small payments, small delays, small compromises, and small decisions that looked harmless at the time. A credit card is supposed to be temporary. You use it to get through a tight week. You use it when the car needs work, when the grocery bill comes before payday, or when a medical bill arrives at exactly the wrong moment. The idea is simple. You borrow for a little while, pay it down, and move on. But for many Americans, that is no longer how it works. The balance stays. It follows them from one month to the next. A payment goes out, and for a moment it feels like progress. Then another bill comes in, the number drops a little, then rises again. And slowly, without a dramatic warning, the credit card stops being a backup plan and becomes part of ordinary life. That is the uncomfortable truth behind the credit card balance that became permanent. This is not only a story about careless spending. That is the easy explanation, and sometimes it is part of the picture, but it is not the whole picture. For many households, the balance is not built from vacations or luxury purchases. It is built from groceries, utilities, insurance, car repairs, medical expenses, and the basic cost of keeping life moving. According to the Federal Reserve, 45% of credit card owners carried a balance at least once during the previous year. Among adults aged 45 to 59, that number was 52%. Among adults aged 60 and older, it was 36%. Those numbers matter because they show something larger than a private mistake. They show that carrying a balance has become a normal part of financial life for millions of households. The scale is hard to ignore. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York reported that credit card balances stood at $1.25 trillion in the first quarter of 2026. That number did fall by $25 billion during the quarter. And that matters, because the story is not that debt only moves upward every month. But even after that decline, the total remains large enough to reveal how much of American life is being carried forward on borrowed money. For a middle-class household, the problem often begins with something very ordinary, a gap. The mortgage or rent has to be paid. The car payment has to be paid. Insurance, utilities, groceries, prescriptions, and repairs do not wait until the household feels ready. By the time the necessary bills are covered, there may not be enough cash left for the next surprise, so the credit card covers the difference. At first, it can feel reasonable. The groceries are bought. The car is fixed. The electric bill is paid. The household gets through the month. Nothing falls apart. But the next month has its own problems, and this is where many households begin to lose control without noticing. The danger is not always the first charge. The danger is repetition. A family pays part of the balance, but then another expense lands on the card. A repair is slowly paid off, but groceries take its place. A medical bill goes down, but insurance goes up. The balance changes shape, but it never really leaves. AARP found that among adults aged 50 and older with credit card debt, 47% said they used credit cards for basic living expenses they could not fully cover with cash. 17% said they relied on credit cards for basic expenses every month over the previous year. That is an important distinction. There is a difference between using credit as a backup and using credit as a regular part of survival. One is temporary, the other can become a system. For people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and early 70s, this carries a different weight. At this stage of life, money feels tied to time. There may be fewer years to recover from setbacks. Retirement may be close enough to feel real. Health expenses may become more common. Adult children may still need help. Aging parents may need support. A home, a car, insurance, and medical costs can quietly take a larger share of the budget than expected. So, when a credit card balance follows someone into this stage of life, it does not feel like a small inconvenience. It feels like a warning. A balance is not just a number on a statement. It is a claim on future income. It competes with savings. It competes with retirement plans. It competes with the emergency fund. It competes with peace of mind. And the trap is not always obvious. Many people think the danger starts when a payment is missed. But often, the trap begins long before that. It can begin while the account is still current, while the minimum payment is still being made, while the credit score still looks acceptable, while the household still appears stable from the outside. That is what makes this kind of debt so quiet. The car is still in the driveway. The refrigerator is full enough. The bills are being paid. The credit card payment goes out every month. From a distance, everything looks normal. But underneath that normal life, the household may be losing flexibility. The Federal Reserve found that 63% of adults could cover a $400 emergency expense using cash or something equivalent. That also means many adults could not fully cover that kind of expense in that way. The same report found that 15% of adults would put a $400 emergency expense on a credit card and pay it off over time. $400 is not a luxury. It can be a tire, a medical copay, a prescription, a small home repair, a utility problem. When an expense that size has to be carried forward, it reveals something deeper than one bill. It reveals how narrow the margin has become. And once the margin becomes narrow, ordinary life begins to feel fragile. A car repair can become a balance that lasts for months. A dental bill can stay on a card long after the appointment is over. Groceries can be eaten in a week, while the balance remains for months. A utility bill can be paid today and still cost money later through interest. That is one of the most exhausting parts of revolving debt. The thing you paid for is already gone, but the payment remains. The groceries are gone. The gas tank is empty. The medical appointment is over. The car repair has already been done. But the balance is still there, quietly waiting on the next statement. This is why permanent credit card debt can feel so heavy. You are not only paying for the present. You are paying for past shortfalls, past emergencies, and past months when the budget simply did not stretch far enough. AARP found that 87% of older adults with credit card debt said unexpected expenses contributed to that debt. That statistic matters because it challenges the simple idea that credit card debt is only about poor discipline. Sometimes choices matter, but for many households, the story is more complicated. It is about real life colliding with limited cash. The washing machine breaks, the insurance bill rises. The car needs work, a prescription changes. A family member needs help, a higher grocery bill becomes normal. Each event may be manageable alone. Together, they form a pattern, and the pattern is the problem. A one-time balance can be paid down. A repeating balance becomes a way of life. And once debt becomes part of the monthly routine, a household can begin depending on it without fully admitting it. What makes this dangerous is that it feels normal. If the card still works, life can continue. If the payment is made, the account stays open. If the limit increases, there is more room to breathe. In the first quarter of 2026, the New York Fed reported that credit card limits rose by $60 billion. More available credit can be useful for some people, but it can also make the boundary harder to see. A household may feel like it still has room when the room is borrowed, and borrowed room can become expensive. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau reported that average APRs reached 25.2% for general-purpose cards and 31.3% for private label cards in 2024. At borrowing costs like that, a balance can become difficult to reduce, especially when new expenses keep arriving before the old ones are gone. This does not mean every person with a credit card is in financial trouble. It does not mean credit cards are always harmful. Many people use them carefully and pay them off in full. But the warning sign appears when the card is no longer just a payment method. The warning sign appears when it becomes a bridge between income and basic expenses. A bridge can be useful, but if you have to live on the bridge, something has changed. For someone in their 50s, The cost may be less money going toward the future. For someone in their 60s, it may be the fear of entering retirement with debt payments still attached to the monthly budget. For someone already retired, it may be the stress of carrying a balance on a fixed income, where every payment competes with groceries, utilities, medications, and insurance. AARP also found that some older adults were still paying balances on canceled cards. That detail is small, but it says a lot. The card may be gone, but the debt remains. The spending moment may have passed, but the obligation continues. That is why this issue matters so much for middle-aged and older Americans. The balance does not only affect today's budget. It can reach forward into the years when people hoped life would finally become simpler. And there is an emotional side to this that numbers alone cannot show. Many Americans are not trying to live extravagantly, they are trying to keep the car running. Keep food in the house, stay current on bills. Protect their credit, avoid embarrassment. Hold on to the hope that retirement is still possible. They make the payment, open the next statement, and see that the balance is still there. After a while, that can wear on a person. It can create shame. It can create silence. It can make someone avoid looking at the statement. It can make a couple argue over a small purchase when the real issue is much larger than that one purchase. It can make a person feel irresponsible, even when much of the debt came from basic expenses and unexpected bills. But shame does not explain the system, awareness does. The deeper question is not whether someone has ever used a credit card. The deeper question is what role the credit card is playing. Is it a tool used occasionally and paid down? Or has it become part of the household's monthly operating budget? Is it covering rare emergencies? Or is it filling the same gap again and again? Is the balance slowly shrinking? Or does every payment simply make room for the next expense? These are not comfortable questions, but they are honest ones, because permanent credit card debt rarely announces itself as a crisis. It usually arrives quietly, one statement at a time. A balance that was supposed to last 1 month lasts 6. A repair that was supposed to be temporary is still being paid for a year later. A card that was supposed to help during emergencies becomes the reason the next emergency is harder to handle. For households approaching retirement, this becomes even more serious. Retirement is often built around the hope that expenses will become manageable enough to live on a more limited income. But debt payments can change that picture. They can follow people into years when earning more may be harder. They can reduce the room available for health costs, housing costs, and basic needs. They can make a fixed income feel even more fixed. That is why the credit card balance that became permanent is not just a debt story. It is a retirement story. It is an inflation story. It is an emergency savings story. It is a story about middle-class pressure. It is the story of what happens when normal life costs more than the monthly budget can comfortably absorb. There is no need to exaggerate it. The data is serious enough. Credit card balances remain large. Many card holders carry balances. Many older adults with debt report using cards for basic expenses. Unexpected expenses play a major role, and high borrowing costs can make balances harder to escape. The quiet lesson is this: debt can change its role without asking permission. 1 month, it is a backup, then it is a bridge. Then it is part of the routine, then it is permanent, and once that happens, the card is no longer only helping the household manage money, it is shaping the household's future. For many viewers, the most useful takeaway is not a complicated strategy, it is a moment of recognition. The balance is not only a number, it is a signal. It can show whether credit is solving occasional problems or covering regular life. It can show whether payments are reducing debt or simply keeping the cycle alive. It can show whether the next $400 emergency would be manageable or whether it would turn the wheel again. The real warning sign is not having access to credit. The real warning sign is needing credit for ordinary life to continue. That is when a temporary balance can become permanent. That is when a financial tool can become a trap. and that is when a household that appears to be getting by may actually be losing ground, quietly, month after month.